bad. Welcome. How are you guys doing today? Welcome to the first episode of QC Live that is officially and fully in the postseason. Now, unfortunately, we're not here to review a Browns wild card victory. That would be awesome if it were the case, but that is not what we're here to do. We're here to talk about a lot of different things and a lot of different stuff here. First and foremost, I want to kind of shift gears because we've been talking a lot recently about the messes that the Cleveland Browns have themselves, right? We know that the Browns have a pretty big hole with Watson. We'll see whatever happens with this Achilles injury. You know, there's a lot to talk about with the Browns and the messes that the Cleveland Browns have themselves. But sometimes you can't just focus exclusively on what you got going on. Sometimes it's better. And again, I understand the Browns have a lot of things going on. The Browns, hold on one second, y'all. All right, so the Browns have been in a pretty dicey place, and we spent a lot of time talking about that. But sometimes it's more informative and more interesting, quite frankly, to talk about other people's messes. And, well, there's a mess in Pittsburgh that has finally bubbled up to the surface that people are fed up with. Now, the background to this, right, and what's going on, Pittsburgh this wild card weekend didn't just lose to Baltimore, but lost in a way that was not of the standard that most people associate with the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? The Steelers have been on this reputation or had this reputation with this tough, well-coached team, and what we saw with Pittsburgh when they went into Baltimore wasn't that. And this is on the heels of there being a lot of frustration build up with Mike Tomlin, not just for this season, but for what essentially is the last 10 years of football out there in Pittsburgh. Pretty much everything that's happened since they won that last Super Bowl. You got the constant failures versus Tom Brady, and now what is the longest playoff win drought in the AFC North. It doesn't help things that the Steelers have lost the playoff game to the Cleveland Browns, that the Steelers have lost the playoff game to the Baltimore Ravens, and have watched the Cincinnati Bengals go to a Super Bowl. When it comes to playoff success in this decade, I need everybody to understand this. Pittsburgh, they rank last in the AFC North. They've been surpassed by everybody else in the division. Even the lowly Browns have gotten past them by beating the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. So don't think that people are saying this as a reaction to one game. Quite frankly, this has been a frustration that Steeler fans have had with Mike Tomlin going all the way back to when I was in college. I remember Steeler fans out there in Youngstown, Ohio, would get furious at this point in the year and suggest to me that the Steelers should fire Mike Tomlin, right? And I always laughed it off. That's stupid. Why would they fire Mike Tomlin? I mean, like that makes no sense. But it was something that was around for like 10 years. Always around. And then this last run, right? Because I don't know if you guys realize, it's been since 2016 since the last playoffs victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers happened January 15th, 2017. So 15 days into 2017, that was the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers had won a playoff game. And Steeler fans have watched them lose versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, Blake Bortles, Steelers fans have watched him lose versus the Cleveland Browns, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, and now to their rival, Baltimore Ravens. I know that Mike Tomlin gets a lot of credit for not going under 500. And I think there is something to that. What Mike Tomlin doesn't get credit for, and look, we usually use credit as a positive thing, but sometimes you got to take credit for things that aren't good, is quite frankly, since he won that last, well, not even one, since he lost that last Super Bowl in 2010, his playoff record has been awful. He's won 3 playoff games since 2011. He's 3, and let me count the L's. There's so many I have to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's 3-9 in the last, 13, 14 years of playoff games? This is a franchise that expects to be a little bit more than just the team that makes the playoffs. And I think Mike's gotten by because the last 5-6 years, he's been dealing with quarterback instability. He's been dealing with a roster that I don't think has been built to the maximum. Some of this, I do believe, lays at the hands of how Omar Khan and the Pittsburgh Steelers organization operates. Right? They're not the most aggressive guys. They're going to take these small, safe bets, and they'll win some small, safe bets here, but they're never going to go all in. That is the Steeler way. And maybe that way worked really well up until a certain point of league history, because now teams are spending cash. Teams are doing what they can to put their rosters over the top. And in this era, Pittsburgh, as far as a force in the playoffs, they can't compete. They've been eclipsed by everybody in the AFC North. They have been eclipsed by the Baltimore Ravens. They have been eclipsed by the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, when's the last time we had a serious conversation about teams that could come out the AFC and we brought up Pittsburgh? I mean, like, it had to be since Antonio Brown was still playing football. Le'Veon Bell was still a good running back. Ben Roethlisberger was still in the league. Like, everybody who's associated with the last era of Steeler football that had any chance of winning a Super Bowl, they're all retired, or at least out the league. That's how long it's been for Pittsburgh. Again, Mike Tomlin, I have no doubt he's a good coach. If he goes somewhere, he'll be good. And I don't believe that coaches give you ceilings, right? I know that that's a belief out there. I think people tend to put too much value in the coach, right? I think this reason the Steelers have not gone under 500 is partly because of Mike Tomlin. I also think it's partly because of other things that they put together in that organization. Like the way they run things, they're going to put together a decent squad. It's just that they're not going to put together the type of dominant team that can win a championship in today's playoffs, or in today's NFL environment. There's a picture of TJ Watt on screen. TJ Watt hasn't won a playoff game. He also had a awful playoff game. Let's jump into that rabbit hole real quick. Let's talk about TJ Watt. At some point, y'all, we got to talk about how this is the stat guy. How this is the guy whose whole argument for why he's better than this guy or that guy is stats, right? Not the advanced numbers, the accounting metrics, right? He's the sack guy. That's what TJ Watt has always sold himself on being. Well, TJ Watt ain't the sack guy anymore. I don't know if y'all have noticed this. 2 seasons now where his advanced metric efficiency has been down, and lo and behold, his sack numbers went down. I know a lot of Steeler fans like to act like Myles Garrett's pass rush win rate doesn't matter or his advanced metrics don't matter, but see, Myles's production has stayed about the same while his advanced numbers have stayed about the same, which would suggest that Myles Garrett still as good as he's ever been. TJ Watt, post 2021, those advanced metrics have dipped steeply. Got to ask yourself, why isn't TJ Watt getting a job though? I mean, they traded for an extra pass rusher, Preston Smith. They also have Highsmith, Nick Herbig. He's got enough help on that defensive line. It's not like the help's gotten worse. I think TJ Watt's declining a little bit. Not enough people are talking about that. The fact that he's like the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year, I mean, that just tells you if he wins Defensive Player of the Year, then they need to restructure how they vote for that award because it's just woefully incompetent at that point. But that's it for the TJ Watt rabbit hole. Let's jump back to the Mike Tomlin thing. So what do you do if you're the Steelers and you're in that situation? You got to do something, right? You cannot send a message that being better than average but not great in a league that values greatness is good enough. But you have nobody else you can make a move off of that would make that message clear. You got no quarterback. You can say, all right, we're done with this era. We're moving on. You got, you're going to fire Omar Khan? I don't think ownership wants to do that. So it makes you look at Mike Tomlin and makes you ask the question, like, are you going to trade him? Going to trade him to the Cowboys? Going to trade him to the Raiders? Remember the love affair Mike Tomlin and the Raiders have always, not Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin and Tom Brady have always had. Don't underestimate. He might become a Raider. There's been as much smoke on firing Mike Tomlin as there's ever been. And look, usually I'm on here saying, man, I hope they do it because I want the Steelers to be worse because I'm a Browns fan. But at this point, I think the fire Tomlin people have a point. How many years can you go to the playoffs and not win? And look, we're not talking about a dude in his fifth year. We're talking about Mike Tomlin, who's the longest tenured coach in the NFL right now, right? That, to me, is the difference there in that conversation. Like, if this were fifth-year coach, six-year coach Mike Tomlin, I'd be like, what are you guys talking about? The record's great. But, I mean, we got almost a decade of information that tells us there's something wrong with this team. Now, maybe it's not Mike Tomlin. I don't think it's Mike Tomlin. Maybe the Steelers need to just decide they need to have a more aggressive approach. But this approach that the Steelers have been kind of doubling down on, they got to do something else other than this. I think that point has become clear because I've never seen a Baltimore Ravens Steelers game that didn't feel like a legitimate competition. And that game wasn't a beatdown, but it didn't feel close. It didn't feel competitive. So that's, to me, the interesting part of this whole Mike Tomlin thing. What is Pittsburgh going to do? Because they got to do something. They got to do something. Or maybe they're just going to decide they're going to stick with it and wait until they finally get a quarterback. But what you going to do in the meantime? Are you going to re-sign Russ to a $30 million contract? $40 million contract? You going to let Russ walk? Stick with Justin Fields? That could be an option. Pittsburgh has a lot of questions to answer about their future. But what is obvious to me is that the Steelers that literally I grew up watching, the Mike Tomlin era Steelers, I don't know if Mike Tomlin's going to be gone, but I do know that that era is going to at least feel very different, if not be changed altogether sooner than later, because you can't fight time on this one. And time's just telling you something's got to shake here. Maybe the Steelers don't do anything. Maybe they just let him retire, but something's got to shake. The structure of this whole thing, it's got to shake. I mean, it'd be one thing if I'm talking about 5 years of not winning in the playoffs. We are literally talking about a abysmal playoff record since the last time that they've been to a Super Bowl. We're talking about what, a 13-year history, 14-year history. His history, his bad playoff record is a teenager now. You gotta do something. Gotta do something. Interested to see what Pittsburgh does there. But that's Pittsburgh's mess, right? We talked about that. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield briefly. Played in the playoffs. I thought he had some really nice moments in this game. I try to be careful when I talk about Baker because so many people just feel so charged up about this topic. Baker Mayfield's Baker Mayfield. And I say this with a lot of things because it ends up being true. Baker Mayfield's never as good as people say he is, but he's never as bad as people say he is. He's always somewhere in between, and he is a very streaky player. He's also a player who's prone to like a weird amount of misfortune. Like he's just one of those guys who like gets the weird stuff that happened to him. It's not necessarily his fault. I don't think his 2 turnovers in this game the 2 mistakes in this game were his fault. Like the early snap on the 3rd and 1. I don't think that was Baker's fault. Or the fumble on the handoff. That didn't feel like Baker's fault. Maybe it was. Maybe he turned around late, but I don't know. If Baker were on the Browns, I would not be sitting here trying to get Baker out the paint because he fumbled the ball there. So I don't think Baker was the reason they lost that game. It's just he's Baker, right? And because the Browns situation is so miserable, I think people had the tendency to see Baker Mayfield having a pretty damn good year out there in Tampa Bay and start saying to themselves, we missed out on a top 5 guy. I've heard that so much over the last couple of weeks. And it's like, why are we lying to ourselves about what Baker Mayfield is? Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback. But like Tampa Bay is eventually going to draft somebody to replace him in the next couple of years. Someone said, I don't understand how the Buccaneers didn't win that game. Their defense, brother, it stinks. Their defense is not consistent. They make some of these flash plays and convince you that they're good, but they're just not, right? Yeah, Baker had the most interceptions in the league. Yeah, I mean, he's still Baker. He's a more refined, more mature version of Baker Mayfield. I think he's the best version of himself that could possibly exist in the NFL. And that version of him is a pretty good quarterback. He's a tier 3 guy, right? A definite starter, but somebody who ultimately you're going to have your hesitation about picking him to win the championship. That's where Baker is, right? And that's why the Browns want to upgrade from him, but they upgraded from him with Deshaun Watson. So they're going to have egg on their face for that because they got worse at quarterback. Now, speaking of quarterback, we talked a lot about quarterback. I just want to get a feel for it, chat. Where are you guys at with quarterback? Do you want to, so put A in the chat. Put A in the chat if you want to draft a quarterback number 2 overall. Put B in the chat if you want to just sign Kirk Cousins. Put C in the chat if you want to sign Sam Darnold. And put D in the chat if you want to do nothing with quarterback, have the Browns stink and tank for 2026. What do you guys want to do? Someone said A, Cam Ward. Got some B's in the chat. B's in the chat. A lot of B's in the chat. A lot of B's in the chat. Some C's in the chat. Leaning B. B or C. It's interesting. Every year there's like a debate over quarterbacks. Why is it that here's my only issue with quarterback, right? We always talk about quarterbacks in the draft because I remember this happened with like Zach Wilson. And somebody told me that the Jets couldn't pass on Zach Wilson because he's a quarterback and he could be good. But like, why is it that that's the only position in football? And I know why people do it. But like, do we realize that that's the only position in football? We don't care if you're actually a good prospect or not. in order to justify drafting you super high. Like the only position, every other position, we do this strenuous research, right? I talked about Abdul Carter. I think he's the number one pick in this draft, or at least the number one prospect in this draft. I talk about Abdul Carter all the time. You bring up Abdul Carter, man, all of a sudden everybody start getting their scouting goggles on. They want to know how much the kid weigh, how long his arm is, what's his tape versus longer tackles, can he play in a 3-4, 4-3? All of these questions about Abdul Carter, which is fair. That's the process, right? You're supposed to have all these questions. But then when we start talking about quarterback, it feels like the only question that matters to people is whether you need a quarterback or not. Like none of these questions about the quarterbacks matter. Nobody cares about it. Everybody just, do you need a quarterback or do you not? And here's the problem I have with this year's draft and the quarterback market in general this year. I've talked about it. I'm shorting the quarterback market. I've been on this train for a while. I just don't think that quarterback's going to be in high demand like most people think it's going to be. And the reason I think that is because, look, the Browns are the most quarterback desperate team in the NFL. If there was one team that could justify going crazy for a quarterback, it is the Cleveland Browns. Right? The Tennessee Titans have no reason to believe that they're even close to success. So who cares if they have a quarterback or not? The Raiders are nowhere near that. Who cares if they have a quarterback or not? And, well, who else in front of us need a quarterback? Somebody name a quarterback adjacent team. All the other teams that need New York, right? They stink. All these other teams that need quarterbacks, you have no doubt about their ability to go get a top 10 pick next year and draft a dude, right, at quarterback. The Browns are the one team you're like, hey, they might not have a top 10 pick next year because that roster is legitimately talented. And I'm bringing this up for a reason, right? The Browns are the team that would need the quarterback the most because they have talent. They're an older roster. Like, they're not a quarterback away, but they're the closest team to that. And most of us can identify the Browns situation and still say to ourselves, let's kick the tires on Kirk Cousins. Let's see what Sam Darnold wants. Because we understand that is a fundamentally better solution than wasting a top 10 pick on a prospect you don't really believe in. So my question is, if we understand this and we're the most quarterback desperate team in this draft, what in the world makes us think that somebody else going to lose their mind over quarterbacks? I think we're worried about the wrong thing. We need to worry about if Abdul Carter is going to go number one overall or not. Not if we can foist this pick on somebody and get a million trades back. I don't think there's going to be that strong of a trade back market because if we don't want that quarterback, it's probable that they don't want that quarterback. The only thing I can see happening that makes somebody want the quarterback is if Deion Sanders gets a job and makes it abundantly clear that he wants to draft his son super early. And then he'll have to do that. But I'm going to be honest with you. And look, this is no shade towards Shedeur Sanders. You think Deion Sanders is going to trade for that second overall pick and not take Travis Hunter? Serious question. Serious question, chat. If Deion Sanders gets that number 2 overall pick, y'all think he going to do it to get Shedeur, or do you think he about to get Travis? Because everything about his career says he probably going to get Travis. Because that's the dude who brought it to another level for him, right? Everything that we talk about with Deion Sanders being able to do all this stuff that he did for Jackson State all the way to Colorado, and he might even parlay it into an NFL job. You know why he was able to do it? Because he was able to get the number 1 recruit in the country while he was coaching at Jackson State. Like, that is the main reason why Deion is on that trade. Right? The reason why we talking about Deion at Colorado, Deion at a Power 5 is because he pulled off that feat. Nobody was impressed when he got his son to commit to to Jackson State with him. Nobody thought that was like a big coup, but they thought that Travis Hunter one, that put him on the map in a much different way. that he was on the map to begin with. I think Deion would have no problem taking his son at the 6th overall pick if his son showed up at the 6th overall pick. I just don't think he about to trade up to 2 and pass on Travis Hunter. Like, and if Deion is that desperate to trade for his kid, the other question needs to be asked, should he really be in a position where he's going to be able to be extorted by a team for his son to draft him? It's a horrible position to put yourself in. Like, if you're the Raiders, why would you do that? Why would you do that? I don't know. But yeah, the Browns quarterback search, I think I come back to it. I think to that, there's a lot of us assuming certain guys want to be available. Like a lot of people, like Sam Darnold's not going to be available. Well, I don't know. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't think it's a guarantee. If Sam Darnold was so damn good that they wanted to lock that up, they would have locked that shit up already, right? Like that would have happened. But Sam Darnold said they're contractless right now. So we'll see. And if these two quarterbacks, like if teams were begging to take quarterbacks 1 and 2 overall in this year's class, dog, the Browns would be the main team trying to do it. The Browns are the most desperate team for a quarterback. And we got to move off the Deshaun Watson era. They got every reason in the world to draft a quarterback, and they don't look like they want to do it. They out here trying to convince folk that they want to do it. That's how badly the Browns don't want to do it. It's crazy. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. How many starters do you think our O-line, can you put that on chat on screen? Yeah. How many starters do you think our O-line will have next season? Can't imagine. Joel has a lot left in the tank. Posick, Conklin have struggled. I think they'll write those problems off as those guys being moved to a new offense, whether that's the correct way or not. They're never going to bench Joe Bitonio. But I do think Wyatt Teller will be good. I think Conklin will be fine if he stays healthy. And Posick will be much better in a different system. So I'm expecting a new left tackle and maybe a center. But I think the system change might be the new center for them. So we'll see. Will the system revert? Might be the new center for them. But yeah. Yeah, we keep looking at this like, oh, we're going to take advantage of a quarterback desperate team. And I'm like, dog, the call's coming from inside the building. And we don't want to do it. Who's more desperate than the Browns? Browns fans have the most reason to be thirsty about quarterback. And like 30% of us want a quarterback. I don't know. This screams to me not a year where people go crazy about quarterback. I'm more worried about if Abdul Carter going to be there at 2 than I am about whatever the Browns going to be able to get with a trade back. Because I don't know if that market's going to be there. Because like I'm telling you right now, I would not trade up. If I had the 6th pick, I would not trade multiple picks to get Cam Ward or to get Deion Sanders. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, right? Maybe it's going to be my worst take ever. But yeah, I just don't know about this year's whole quarterback thing. We also got to ask ourselves what a successful 2025 looks like, right? Like, what will a 2025 that everybody will be happy with, that nobody will get fired for, looks like? I think making the playoffs or coming close to making the playoffs would be that. But yeah, there has been a lot. Someone said, what happened to my take about Genty if Abdul is not there? How you feel about that? Yeah, I like Genty. Number 2 overall, I'd probably go Mason Graham if I had to pick somebody, and Genty's not there. Mason Graham or get one of the corners. Like I would at that point, you could trade back because that's like 3 people I value at the same ground. Someone said it's way higher than 30% of us. No, it's not. I promise you it's not. Like of the people who actually like There are folks who do not pay attention to college football and they just go, yeah, the Browns should take a quarterback if one's there. I don't count those people. We're talking about the people who are in here having these conversations on a weekly basis. Yeah, man, it's about 30% of y'all that want a quarterback. Like, you go through my comment section on any of the videos I upload about quarterback, 90% of it is like, hey, man, we shouldn't take this guy. We shouldn't take that guy. Like, and then there's like a small minority of people saying we should take Cam Ward or Deion or Shador Sanders. You are 30% of the audience. Maybe even less. But the majority of folks are not trying to take a quarterback. Especially the ones who have watched these dudes play. Like, I saw somebody send me a highlight clip of these quarterbacks on Twitter. And I'm like, brother, I'm not about to be convinced off nobody's highlight reel. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Of course he's going to look good on his highlight reel. Well, UCSS says we have to take a QB early because reasons. That's the worst thing about like some of these takes that I'm hearing is like, if your justification for taking a player at the top of the draft isn't that you believe in them as a player, but you just need the position, you're going to fail. You're always going to fail drafting like that. Like, I've watched the Browns fail so many times. Just like, oh, well, we need this position. Let's draft it, right? 2014 is the biggest example of that kind of failure because in 2014, the Browns took Justin Gilbert, 8th overall. Why? Because Mike Pettin wanted a cornerback, and that was the number one dude on their board. That was stupid. Justin Gilbert sucked. Then they wanted a quarterback. And the vibes told them Johnny Manziel, and they wanted to get a quarterback. So they just drafted Johnny Manziel. Look at that 2014 draft. It's like a bunch of Hall of Famers and Pro Bowlers in there. Browns could have had all of them. Didn't take them. Why? Because we wanted a cornerback and a quarterback. The two positions that draft class did not have. You cannot manufacture a draft class into being what you want it to be. If quarterbacks are there, awesome. Quarterbacks are there. But if quarterbacks are not there, then quarterbacks aren't there. It is what it is. And then you just got to pick what's there, right? You can't make the harvest what the harvest ain't. Yeah, the Browns traded back twice that year, then traded up from 9 to 8. They started with the 4th pick. Everybody thought they was going to go Sammy Watkins. It was whatever. I wanted them to get Aaron Donald. That's on record. I got witnesses to that opinion. I was in college at the time, but I thought Aaron Donald was the best player in that draft. All right. So that is where I'm at with all of that, man. It's a lot of hoping out there with the quarterback position, right? You can't hope at the quarterback position. You can't guess at the quarterback position. You can't sit here, cross your fingers, and just hope it works out. You gotta have a process behind what you do with the quarterback position, or else you're gonna fail. And the reason the Browns have failed at quarterback is they spent too much time crossing their fingers and hoping that something will work out. You got to have a process, right? Not just to get that guy in place, but as he said, we drafted Corey Coleman because we needed a wide receiver. Another great example, right? But you need a process in place. Not just to get you the assets to get a quarterback, right? Because I think we can tend to look at it like that. You need a process to develop that quarterback. What kind of offense are you trying to implement for a quarterback to be under? What kind of players is that quarterback going to need in that offense? What kind of coaches is he going to need? What kind of experience is he going to need? What kind of quarterback room is he going to need? All of these things matter. All of these things matter. Speaking of another thing that matters, let's talk about the Browns offensive coordinator search. 2 years, 2 offensive coordinator searches. It's starting to get narrowed down, right? We talked about this at the beginning of this search. Might come down to Clint Kubiak and Tommy Rees. Mike Vrabel got the head coach job over in New England, so he has to put his staff together. It was heavily rumored that Tommy Rees will get an opportunity to get that job. And what we do know is that being the offensive coordinator under Mike Vrabel means that you get to call the plays. Now, I don't know how important that is to offensive coordinators. We assume it's an important thing. I don't know if it's as important as like the internet thinks it is to offensive coordinators. And I'm not saying that because I think I know better. I'm just saying, like, truly, I don't know how important it is actually. I know we fans, commenters on the internet, people who talk about the game into microphones, we tend to put a lot of importance on like who the play caller is and call that a coveted position. I have no clue how important that actually is to offensive coordinators. What offensive coordinators value. I would imagine it's more process-oriented things. How respected will I be in the organization's structure? Is there a plan for me to continue my career on an upward trajectory? Am I going to be able to get the experience in the areas that I want to get experiences in, right? So maybe play calling is important. Maybe you're a coach who does not see themselves as a play caller if they get a head coaching job, but they see themselves as more of a John Harbaugh type. Even if you're an offensive guy, maybe that's how you see yourself. Maybe play calling doesn't matter that much in that scenario. I don't know what offensive coordinators tend to look for in these jobs. Maybe it's what quarterback will I be coaching? What is the task at hand? Am I a good fit for the roster? I think those things probably end up mattering a bit more. So who's to say if the Browns will be able to land Clint Kubiak or if they'll be able to land, Tommy Rees? What we do know is that these two are in high demand. They're going to have multiple interviews with other opportunities to become offensive coordinator coaches. The Browns are likely not offering up play calling, but to Kevin's credit, he did let Ken Dorsey call the plays. So he might be more flexible on that than a lot of people have assumed that Kevin is. The question is, should Kevin give up the play calling or not? Because I have not seen enough evidence that he's actually bad at it, or at least as bad as the internet makes him seem like it. Daryl Bevel's in the mix too. I think that's somebody that they're looking at. Who knows? Alex Van Pelt's name might pop up, but I've been surprised that he hasn't. So maybe they're just looking at a completely different direction there than Alex Van Pelt. But the Browns offensive coordinator search is going to be interesting. It is interesting that the offensive line coach has already been hired, and it seems like they have not made a decision on offensive coordinator. And I also wonder what is the nature of this role at offensive coordinator, because the Browns have talked about it. They're going back. They seem to know what they want to do, is my whole point. Like, the Browns seem to know what they want to do offensively. And usually you would hire an offensive coordinator, especially if you don't have an offensive-minded coach, the Browns do, to choose the new direction of the offense. Well, this is clearly not going to be the case for whoever they hire. Again, I like to focus more on the process here or the scope of work than I do the actual names involved on the list, because we can get tied up to these names and somebody say, I love Clint Kubiak, when y'all don't really love Clint Kubiak. Y'all don't know much about Clint Kubiak, man. Like, I see this every coordinator hire where people just get super tied up into coaches' names and super tied up into what this guy has done and that guy has done and what we can project onto it. I'm not here for it. I look at the process. And one of the things this Browns offensive coordinator job screams to me is they have chosen a direction offensively. They have made their mind up. They're going back to what Kevin does well. Now, if they're going back to what Kevin does well, that means two things. One, Kevin's probably going to call the plays. Two, Kevin's probably going to have more of an imprint on this offense. Now, that means that whoever's brought in to be offensive coordinator, this is less of a full control job and more of an opportunity to work under somebody. I think that it's possible we either get like a super veteran coach there, like a Daryl Bevel, or a super inexperienced guy. I don't know if we get anybody who's hot and up and coming to take that offensive coordinator job, because it's just not the job I envision for a lot of those hot and up and coming guys in that conversation with the offensive coordinator job. It is What are y'all arguing about? Y'all arguing about John Dorsey? Hold on. Pause the show. Are y'all arguing about John Dorsey? John Dorsey? Oh, good Lord. All right. We're going to argue about John Dorsey in the middle of this show. I don't get it, man. Like, John Dorsey made, 2 good draft picks his time here? Well, actually, 2 good draft picks. He drafted Denzel Ward and he drafted Nick Chubb. Both those draft picks were extra picks accumulated by Sachi Brown. Every other draft pick he made, you can argue he definitely should have drafted somebody else, or like the draft picks he made stunk. I cannot believe we're still arguing about John Dorsey. Brother, John Dorsey brought in Freddie Kitchens. Like, what are we doing? It is all you got to do all you have to do. I swear, all you have to do to fix your reputation with Browns fans is get fired. That's all you have to do. Once the Browns fire you, people start rushing to fix that reputation. That is the most hilarious thing of all. The second the Browns let you go, all of a sudden people love you. I saw Ray Farmer get a job interview. Ray Farmer, yes, in 2024, Ray Farmer got a job interview with somebody. The dude who drafted Johnny Manziel and the dude who drafted Justin Gilbert straight up off vibes. No interviews, nothing. That dude, yes, that guy, that dude got an interview. All you got to do to like make Browns fans. Greg Williams got a whole podcast here, bro. Greg Williams, yes. The guy who was the defensive coordinator on the team that went winless. That Greg Williams. All he did was get fired. And Browns fans are like, we love Greg Williams. Don't nothing make us love you. Either, look, you want to be loved in Cleveland, be the backup quarterback and get fired. That is all you got to do. If you feel underappreciated, be the backup quarterback or get fired. Look, Baker Mayfield was not popular at the end of his run here in Cleveland, but you would have guessed that. Why? Because he got fired. And nothing makes Browns fans love you more than getting fired. Watch. Deshaun Watson about to get cut and find a new fan base in Cleveland. Because boy, do we love when somebody get fired. And now we like, yeah, we actually loved them the whole time. No, my bad. Somebody brought it up. Yeah, Greg Williams was the coach of the team that won 0 games, mind you, with Myles Garrett. And people still be like, yeah, man, we shouldn't have got rid of Greg. Like, Greg just had a disappointing year with the DC Defenders last year, brother. Did y'all watch his defense last year? It stunk with the DC Defenders. And we out here like, yeah, man, Greg. That's the one that got away. Boy, we love anybody. People out here are talking about John Dorsey like he the damn GM in Detroit. I saw somebody give John Dorsey all the credit for something. I'm like, dog, John Dorsey is the assistant. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, man. All right. Goodness gracious. Arguing about John Dorsey. If you ever want to get your love up from Browns fans, just get fired. Oh my goodness. All right, where was I? We ain't doing mock drafts today, dog. That rant just took the mock draft out. I'm sorry. Wow, I gotta find out where I'm at with the thing. Oh yeah, I was supposed to be talking about Travis Hunter and all that stuff. Yeah. Well, Joe Woods, y'all still hate Joe Woods. That's cool. I've seen so much John Dorsey support over the last few days. And I was one of them people who was mad when John Dorsey got fired. And then years I've thought about it. I'm like, actually, was he that good? And the question is no. And the answer to that question is no. He was not that good. Like, he was not. Look, man, somebody put John Dorsey's name up there with like other Hall of Fame GMs. I just lost my mind. What podcast is John Dorsey doing? Does John Dorsey got a podcast chat? Is there like a John Dorsey podcast where he's just like lying to y'all about what his reputation is? And also, like, he takes credit for the Pat Mahomes thing, but like, from what I hear in Kansas City, 100% an Andy Reid thing. He kind of pushed back against it. Someone said, I miss you. My man put on that damn sweater, chewed that gum, said, buddy boy, hired Freddie Kitchens, and y'all just like, yeah, that's dope. Hey, man, he's the dude who fired Greg Williams. Like, that is the hilarious thing about all of this, man. He chewed gum like a boss. Yeah, never mind. Bring him back. Bring him back. He's the only one that knows what to do with this number 2 pick. Whew. All right. Let's get back on track, y'all. Let's get back on track. We're supposed to be a civilized show here. All right. Let's talk about a prospect in this draft that I don't think I've spent enough time discussing, simply because I have no idea what to do with this prospect. And it's Travis Hunter. Because similar to the conversation that I think frustrates me about Shedeur, right? Where a lot of the conversation about the Sanders family is nonsense. I talked about it. I do not care if you think Deion is going to veto somebody getting drafted to the Browns. It's not going to happen, by the way. Like, Deion is not going to block anybody from getting drafted to the Browns. If you believe that Deion Sanders has enough power to force a team to not draft Shedeur or Travis Hunter, I got a ranch. I got a beachfront property to sell you in the middle of Wyoming, because that's nuts. And the reason I think that people are overvaluing the whole Deion element to this, positive or negative, is simple. Okay, let's say Deion doesn't want his kid to get drafted to Cleveland, or Travis Hunter to get drafted to Cleveland. But if you're the Browns, you draft them. Then what? Like for real, let's walk through this scenario. Everybody that's concerned about it, everybody that insists to me that Deion's gonna pull a power move and stop the Browns from drafting this. All right, let's walk through it. No, not enough talk, enough vagueness. Let's walk through what happens. Okay, Browns go at number 2. Deion says, don't pick Shedeur. Browns pick Shedeur. Now what? What's Deion's play? What's he gonna do? What Deion gonna do? Anybody got any good suggestions on what it is that Deion Sanders is going to be able to do to stop that? Well, he gonna stop his kid from playing? So he's gonna say, Shedeur, you're not gonna play this year. Okay. Browns still own the draft rights. Contract ain't started yet. Next year come around. What Deion gonna do about that? So what, is Shedeur just going to quit football because he don't want to play for the Browns? Sit the year out? That's what he's going to do? What Eli Manning did. Eli Manning did nothing. Eli Manning got traded for Phillip Rivers. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Seriously. Browns draft one of these guys. What's the play? What's the play? Everybody who's told me the Browns can't draft this guy, Deion's going to stop us. All right. We draft him. What they going to do? They just not going to play football? What Deion going to do? We going to take this to court? We going to sue us for drafting Deion? For drafting the Colorado kid? What's he going to do, dog? He ain't doing nothing. These kids ain't going to sit out for a year. They got literally no other option. They're going to play. If they want to play football, they're going to play for whatever team that drafts them. So, like, all this Deion drama that I feel like is manufactured, and sometimes Deion does lean into it, so he deserves his fair share of the blame here, too, on this. It's useless. It's useless. So that part of the conversation It annoys me because there's no way that Deion Sanders is going to stop his son from getting drafted wherever you want to draft him, or Travis Hunter. So that brings me to this conversation about Travis Hunter. What do you do with Travis Hunter, dog? He is, to me, the best wide receiver in this class and the best corner in this class. And I would argue, I think there's a significant difference between him and Ted. I don't know if the difference between him and Will Johnson is as large, but the difference between him and Ted is significant. Like, that is where I'm at with these dudes, with this guy. Usually, if you're that talented, right? He won the Heisman Trophy at Colorado, playing both ways. He's super talented. He is as talented as they come. The pedigree's super high. He was a 5-star prospect. This is one of the best prospects in this draft class. If there is a non-quarterback that could go number 1 overall outside of Abdul Carter, 12 is the next guy, right? He's that special. He's that special. The problem with Travis Hunter is that there's so many ways you can mess this up. And you can make the argument for Abdul Carter, but at least with Abdul Carter, you're not arguing about what position he plays in the NFL. You're arguing about where you align Abdul Carter to be on your defense, right? Do you stand him up a little bit? Do you just make him a dirt hand in the ground edge? You know, it's very minute discussions. With Travis, you're talking about how many snaps does he play on offense? Does he play on offense? Does he just play on offense? Does he not play on defense? What do you do with him? If you're a team that wants to draft Travis Hunter, I think he can be worth the pick because I've watched the dude play. And I'm telling you this right now. He's the only reason Colorado had the record they had. He is the best thing that Colorado had. Like, Genty carried Boise State to the playoff, and that was very impressive. But Travis Hunter carried Colorado's whole program to a bowl game, and he might carry Shedeur Sanders to be in the top 5 pick. Like, this is as impressive of a carry job as Deontay Smith and Mac Jones. Y'all remember that one? Where Deontay Smith had people out here talking about Kyle Shanahan going to trade up to go get Mac Jones? Yeah, man, this feels like that. And I'm not saying Shedeur Sanders is Mac Jones, but I mean, he has a lot in common with Mac Jones. Like, I wouldn't say that they're dissimilar as prospects. But you know who I do think got a lot of common with Deontay Smith? Travis Hunter. Yes. That is what his comp is likely to be as a wide receiver. He is that special. He is as good as a dude who won the Heisman Trophy at wide receiver, and he might be the best defensive back in this draft class. That is a really talented player. If you're going to draft Travis Hunter, you need to commit to Travis Hunter in the same way that a team would commit to a franchise quarterback, which is to say, I think you need to let him play both sides or at least see if he can do it in the NFL, because he's too talented of a wide receiver to not let him play a little bit of it. And look, if you go out there and your plan is to put Travis Hunter in a bunch of gimmicky bull, yeah, man, sign me out of that. That's going to be bad. I don't want him in a gimmick. Like, I would say, let Travis Hunter be out there and let him get, the third most snaps at wide receiver on your offense. And let him get the third most snaps at corner on your offense and see where that takes you. Just keep that dude on the field. Like, if you have a staff on offense and defense that wants to keep that dude on the field and his body can hold up to it, because I think that's the second biggest concern with him, you're going to get your money's worth out of Travis Hunter. He's a unique player. Like, I know people bring up all these other two-way guys. Jabril Peppers is another two-way guy that happened recently, and he only played on the defensive side. Look, man, this dude is so much better than than Jabril Peppers. He's that talented, legitimately that talented. Like, honestly, it would be easier to draft him if he just played one position. Like, if he just played wide receiver, I would be standing here like, yeah, that's wide receiver 1. He's probably going to go in the top 3. Easy. If he just played corner, I would be like, yeah, that's DB 1. He's probably going to go in the top 5. We value DBs a little bit less. But the issue with Travis is that he played both. And you got to let him play both because that's what makes him special. And look, I don't know what you do with that. I don't know what you do with that. Because, like, the ideal of him playing both in the NFL, I mean, like, you got to try it. You got to try it. But it's really risky. It's a lot of snaps. It's never been done before. But this dude, a dude like this has not entered the league before. A guy who is legitimately that good at both positions. But then it gives me pause where I'm like, usually these guys who have a bunch of slashes attached to them have a hard time transitioning to the NFL. I have absolutely 100% no idea what to do with Travis Hunter. That is a player that if you draft, you got to have a direction for. You got to have creativity about how you want to use that player. I don't think the Browns should do it simply because I don't think Jim Schwartz is the type of defensive coordinator that's going to value him that much. And I don't think Kevin Stefanski is going to lean into letting this dude play both sides on the offensive defense. They seem to be a bit more traditional when it comes to that. Like, if he could get to, like, somehow if Dan Campbell had a top 5 pick here, that's the team that he needs to go to, right? The team with a wild card coach who's willing to just try some shit. Because I promise you, if he can stay healthy, he can play both ways in the NFL. The problem is he ain't going to be able to stay healthy doing that. Or maybe he will. I don't know. Because if he could be your third best wide receiver and your third best corner, if he could be your second best wide receiver and your best corner on your roster, then that is the most valuable player picked in that draft. Somebody said I'm talking out of both sides with this argument that I'm making. I'm not making an argument. I'm telling you that this prospect is fascinating. I'm not saying the Browns should do this or that he is good or he is bad. This is the point I'm making. Travis Hunter is insane. He's amazing. I don't know if we should draft him. He's a contradiction for me. I don't know what to do with him. That's literally how I started this conversation. I don't know what to do with Travis Hunter. That is the problem with Travis Hunter. I wonder how many other teams are going to feel that way on him because he is amazing. He is a great wide receiver. He's a pretty damn good DB. But he plays both sides, and that changes things. I don't know what to do with this dude. Travis Hunter might be the first prospect that is way too damn talented for his own good. Like, I know some people think he's overhyped. And look, I'm not the biggest fan of Colorado in that program, but I don't think he's hyped. I don't think I watch Colorado and think there are some guys who are being overhyped. I do not think it's Travis. Like, Travis is not overhyped. Like, Travis is the only reason that the hype exists around the team. Remember how bad they were when they lost Travis Hunter like a year ago? Like, this dude's good. Don't fool yourself into thinking he's not good. This dude's good, right? But, man, what do you do? Because you kind of got to play him on both sides. And I don't know, man. I don't know. He's not a punt returner, right? Somebody suggested making him a punt returner. He's not a punt returner. He's not a special teams guy. So it's such a difficult conversation to have because the only way to get full use of all of his talents, which you hope to do with somebody, if you draft them in the top 5, and I guess this is my main overall point. If I draft somebody in the top 5, I want to make sure I get all of what they have to offer. But with Travis Hunter, it seems like that might be impossible to have happen in the NFL. Just because of the physical limitations that exist with playing this game at this high of a level. But also at the same time, I got to ask myself, if Travis Hunter ends up being one of the best DBs in the league, does it matter that I'm also aware that he could be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL also? Or maybe I just try to turn that part of my brain off and ignore it? If he turns into Devontae Smith, do I just ignore the fact that I think he could be a shutdown corner? Does that not linger in there somewhere? With other prospects, that doesn't linger. I don't put Abdul Carter at edge and think to myself, man, I'm missing out on a top-tier running back. And I think that's the contradiction that exists with Travis Hunter. I know I went all over the place to get there, but I think that's part of why I wanted to talk about this, because I'm all over the place with this dude. Extremely talented. Extremely gifted. One of the most fascinating players I've ever watched the All-22 on. I don't know if the Browns should draft him. Like, for some reason, the idea of drafting him makes me nervous. It shouldn't, but it does. And I think it makes a lot of other people nervous too. And it has nothing to do with all the other Colorado Deion Sanders stuff. It has everything to do with just how extremely talented he is. And are we just tripping over nothing when it comes to that? Y'all let me know your thoughts, man. But this has been a fun hour of Quincy Carrier Live. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.